Okay, we've got 6 o'clock. We'll call the Budget Committee meeting to order. Uh, I said, heard from Miss Overman. She's on the way, but we do have a quorum anyway, so we can go ahead and get started. Everyone should have a copy of the November minutes. Please look over those. If there are no corrections or additions, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Okay, okay. Motion by Ford, second by Atwood. All in favor, say aye. Okay. All right. If we have the purchasing report, I pointed out to Amy, it wasn't clear in November when Mr. Goldstein on his chair, if I was taking his spot on the purchasing oversight as well. Uh, Speaking of Mr. Goldstein? No, I was just saying, when we elected officers,
I've spent several funding on grant funds, especially for the health department, your park.
That was a 200 something thousand on the health department.
Yeah.
That came out of 101 though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just something y'all, I hope we've all got our eyes on that. That was alarming to me. Quick numbers. We're looking at about 80% across the board.
all right, moving into the 101 financial summary, beginning on page 8. Let's say this is through December's 50% of the budget year. Basically anything revenue above 50%, above 50%, we would be in pretty good shape, which several of them are, but there are quite a few that are just a bit under that 50% mark. Mr. Gulley?
I might mention one that we kept an eye on last year, if you'll remember, just something to be careful of as y'all going forward. As I've made mention, I am not seeking reelection. Our investment income, those CDs, we were counting on a whole lot there for a bit of time. You will notice that was running way ahead of our projections in the past. That is going to start slowing down. CD rates are not near as nice as they were, and we don't have as much in those CDs at current. So something for y'all to think about, maybe putting that money that might be sitting in the 171 on some CDs or something for a little while might be a really good idea for this going forward. Just put your thoughts where those are. I would suggest that to this committee for sure is that we look at that investment income, which was something that was really nice to have. What that investment income did in the past for us is it really was used to negate the interest rate increases to some loans. So maybe we can offset those again as well with investments and smart investments in our pieces. Something to really notice that is not running near as nice as it was.
Valid point. Definitely take that under consideration. Of course, 101 fund, 47.65% revenue. But if you don't, well, like Sammy said, if you don't count the grant line items, that revenue is at 59.4%. Expenditures 40.7% or 45.2 if you don't count the grant items. Yeah, there are really looks like two big grant items that have been spent on so far, being the health department and to an extent, the uh, food insecurity, that backpack grant that we mentioned earlier. Does anyone on the committee have any questions in the 101? All right, seeing none, go to page 12, the statement of expenditures.
Only showing your other charges for 50.
Gotcha. Okay, this is just the other charges for 58,400. This page 13 with the sheriff's department budget, the courtroom security line item that had been brought up in November, that has been cleared up with the sheriff. Y'all may remember that overtime line item was heavy because a patrol deputy, I think, was being paid out of the courtroom security line item. Did talk to the sheriff, and we did get that straightened out. So it is correct now. Am I correct on that, Miss Amy? Okay.
Overtime pay, drug enforcement, 187 there. That's already over. What?
So that particular line item is actually reimbursed by the drug task force. So it does clear up over the months.
Are there any other questions in the sheriff's expenditures? If not, we'll move on to page 14, 111, urban services. Total revenue, 19.7, but again, if you don't count the grant line items, it's 52.1%. So we've had a lot of grant revenue that has yet to be touched. Expenditures, 14.0% or 35.8 if you don't factor in the grants. And on page 15, you'll have the sheriff's expenditures from urban services. Did you have a question, Mr. Gully? Did you have a question there, Mr. Gully?
I don't mind sharing I was just mentioning to the sheriff that the 54,110 on page 13 is the only area where his budget, which has the largest number of, I think, employees out of, is the only one that seems to be running really tight. And that's the only one where his overtime is already a little over. Just something he might want to keep his eye on in case he had to move money in around to make that one fit somewhere in the future. It looks like that one's the only one that's running really tight.
That's where I've been running some digits short.
Anyone have any questions in the urban services summary? Seeing none, at page 16, solid waste. Revenues at 63.5, expenditures at 32.7. No, Mr. Gully had mentioned the convenience center. The Smith County one, but that one is still at 33.7% of what we had budgeted. That is the correct Smith County one, line item. Okay, which one is it then?
5,750.
Okay, sorry, the Smith County comes out of 55,759 other waste disposal, but that one is still at 29.9% for the year of what we have budgeted. So even with that increase, we're still in good shape there, it would appear. Mr. Gully?
It would appear something's not the same on that one. Not disagreeing with you, that one looks correct, and we had budgeted additional monies, but that number there is not showing the same. And I don't know, Miss Amy, if you maybe give me when you look at purchasing side of things, that large increase, is there a chance that that is behind? And when's that payment made? Is that monthly or is that quarterly made, that payment to solid waste?
It's paid monthly. So you're looking at a function and not single
Correct.
line items.
Correct. I'm with you 100%.
So I'm trying to figure out what the actual question is between the two of you.
Oh, mine was, I think no question in that
Okay.
at all. Mine was back on the purchasing side that we just saw a large jump. Yes, we did budget for a larger jump, but that was a larger jump than I'd expected. You cleared it up with 2 months there on that conversation. But I'm wondering, is this line item behind, is my question. How far
That-
behind is that line item paid?
Probably about a month behind.
You've got to keep your eyes on how far behind they are, y'all. Okay,
Right.
your couple of those accounts run a month behind or more, and your, for example, your sales tax usually coming in on the revenue side runs roughly 2 months behind on
Right.
those. So there's some things you got to keep your eyes on and know in those movements.
I seem to recall saying in November, this will be a learning process. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions on solid waste? Page 17, ambulance service. Total revenues 59%, expenditures 40%. And you'll have the expenditure breakdown on pages 18 and 19. I'll ask Amy, the 140 salary supplements, is that a one-time payment over the course of the year?
That is the one time that this commission voted on.
Okay, so even though it's at 83%, we shouldn't see any,
No, but it has all been paid out.
okay.
Miss Amy, that brought something to my mind, and I'm not, I may have missed it here a minute ago in our fire department and in our rescue squad. The payout would have been in December with those new fees at $50, I believe. Do we know where that ended? I missed it somewhere back through here.
I don't have those exact figures in front of me. Um, yeah, I can't even give you a guesstimate as what they were. I want to say fire department was in the 50,000s. Rescue squad, I believe, was less than 20,000.
Something we may want to get our eyes and look at because we had budgeted with knowing half
We're
the year
within
it's going to be
budget,
at
both.
one.
Both departments were within budget.
Right, but last year's budget ran from, the start changed in July instead of the start changing in, so half a year was at one rate and half the year was at
Correct.
another rate. That makes a big difference. So those pieces, I'm not saying they weren't in budget in that, but they, in this year's budgeted amount, we might want to be careful to look at that. Just know what those costs actually came out as or closer to where they were.
I will include those in my follow-up.
I said, looking at this, overtime is almost as much as the salaries. Something has to be done about that.
Mr. Ford, that department is paid on a 24-hour.
I know
And
that's the problem right there.
we won't disagree in that conversation, but what I'm getting at is when you set a budget, that's why it's so important that if you give raises, you look at that department differently because it's the only department that is paid on a 24-hour clock where you know there's going to be, I believe it's 96 on one and 120 on the other is the number of hours that they're getting in those two checks. So it's sounding right to me, 96 and 120, they're the numbers that are coming to my mind. So you know that there's going to be a large number of overtime hours.
I just think it's ridiculous.
Which brings to my thought of question. I would assume that means their salary increased nicely with the no taxes on overtime. Did I miss something there, or is that correct? Their salary would have increased very nicely. That'd be police and your sheriff's department and your ambulance department with that no pay, no taxes on overtime. Those overtime hours are now non-taxed. Just the overtime portion of those are on a non-taxed side of income. So that should have been a really nice pay raise.
Well, just to clarify, the IRS will give them back at refund, at the returns. So it's not the county that has stopped taking the taxes out.
You are 100% correct, but it'd be a really nice look, and they may want to look at how they claim going through the year on how much is taken out. That hopefully their accountant will talk to them about that.
I think the only other question I had in ambulance service was let me find it. 320 line item dues and memberships. We budgeted 500 and it expended a little over 2,200. Or no, excuse me, I've expended a little over 2,700 for the year. Yeah, the 2,200 overage for the year. Do we know what that came about from?
I do not have those numbers in front of me, and that would probably be a question for your director.
Are there any other questions in the ambulance service? If none, move on. Page 20, 121's the Core Civic Pass-Through Fund. And of course, everyone knows that these are monies that the state sends us that we pass along to Core Civic, so we don't actually do anything with them. 122, County Drug Fund. Like revenues, proceeds from confiscated properties, like we confiscated some decent stuff. Then if we brought in almost 40,000 from uh, sheriff, any idea what they confiscated?
That was some military surplus stuff we sold.
Okay. I was just
Still got a
curious.
few more items to sell. We got to get some titles and stuff cleared up before we sell them.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
That's where I was gonna mention. I'm glad he mentioned it that way. Reminder, those are sales from forfeitures, and those don't happen on a regular basis.
Right.
So those are like, nice to have when they happen, but not a regular basis.
Pages 22 and 23, 127 and 128, that's our ARPA funding. Investment income, a little bit under that 50% mark, like Mr. Gully had said, interest rates are not what they once were. Not much in the expenditure side on the 127, a little bit expenditure on the 128. I think the majority of that is the land purchase that the commission authorized. Page 24, 151 debt service. Revenues at 55.2, again, property tax 77.1 there. Expenditures 35.3. It's like most of these will not come until May, I think, aside from that QSCB monthly one. Am I correct on that, Miss Amy? Page 25, 171 capital projects. Revenues, you'll see we got a payment from Enbridge for the solar array they are building out on the old Bratton place pipeline. Payment of a little over 1.2 million. So balance in that 171 capital projects fund at end of December, a little over 2.25 million. Any questions on the capital projects fund? Let's go.
Just a statement, I believe that would be the money that I was mentioning that might be very imperative that we look at putting into a CD and moving forward. That's could be a nice amount of interest earned that could go towards whichever route this committee decided to go for that interest. In the past, we decided those interests that were, if you remember, that money was kind of, we'll call it extra. I'll leave it at that right now that we had available that was not being spent at that time. And this is the same kind of thing, that this is actually not the same, a different money. This is our money sitting there that has no immediate expenses. Would be very important to look at the thought of putting it on a CD. You can get 4% right now, 4.2 range on an 11-month CD. That's a pretty decent amount of money on $2 million. Just a thought.
Okay.
I don't mind. Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion for us to look at putting a great percentage of this into a CD and seeing what our best interest rate is.
Okay, I have a motion by Atwood to explore putting, is there a particular percentage or a dollar amount you have in mind? Or just let that be determined by the committee at a later date?
I think determined at a later date. I mean, I don't really know what,
To shed the motion or give a sec.
oh, I'll second. He wants to reply.
Okay, I have a motion by Atwood and a second by Overman to explore.
Okay, let me backtrack.
Okay.
Can I revise my motion?
Certainly.
Can I revise it to put 2 million into a CD at the best interest rate that we can locate?
And I will second that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, all right, have a motion by Atwood and a second by Overman to put 2 million of that 171 onto a CD. Is there any discussion from the committee? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Is that a one-time fee? How's this fee work on that one? Is that a one-time deal or was that for the compressor station or just the solar panels or what's I don't,
It's listed on here as just being for the solar array. Was that for the compressor? Miss Rosalie's here too. Yeah, it was impact. Heck of an impact. Mr. Gully?
That brings to question that would mean that area of this project will be available for commercial property tax?
It's a very interesting thought. No. Mr. Ford?
Do we have any plans at all to put any extra on what we owe at this point?
Not that I'm aware of. We just voted to move 2 million of that onto a CD. So would appear the answer to your question is no, but we can certainly discuss that at budget time, which will be here before we know it.
You can put all you want to on there, but when you're sitting over here paying out 412 and 419 and whatever, you ain't gaining nothing. When you be paying it on your principal right here on some of this debt, you eliminate some of it, and you're still gonna be getting more for your money than what you are doing it this way, but you're giving away what you're getting.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. All right, if there are no other questions on the 171 capital projects, page 26 highway fund, which again, the only thing we contribute to that is the little over 115,000, which so far they get 77.4% of that. Expenditures for that department 18.0. Page 27, general purpose school. Again, we only see their revenue. They are at 39.3% of revenue, which that might be a question for Ms. Cawthorn at some point, especially their TISA is only at 32% for the year. Okay, TISA runs 2 months behind, so okay, that answers that. Any questions on 141 school revenues? Sorry, trying to get through. Just like a couple other discussion items, so trying to get to those before we run out of time. All right, from there, we'll go into budget amendments, starting on page 28. I think only one of these is a fund balance draw. Am I correct on that, Miss Amy? I think the 116 is okay. I think we can take them all on one vote in this committee, but I'll go through each of them. 10109G, grant for law enforcement equipment, building improvements at the jail, and training equipment, $14,080. $10110R, opioid contributions, $65,000. This is some of the opioid money that we get each year. And that is, I believe that is to be, the recipients of that will be, as I understand, will be Haven House and what was the other one? Hartsville Hope and Healing. Am I correct on that, Mayor?
There's a national program that they can draw from to work on prevention rather than treatment. So.
Okay. 11603F. This is a fund balance draw, $45,000 from solid waste to purchase a work truck for the convenience center. $11803G. This is a safety grant from EMS, $10,329 to be used to purchase a Transcend chair with power track system. I believe that's for assisting with lifting. 14109 schools, 8,000. That is a Healthier School Challenges Award. 14110, a donation from the Joe Ferguson Memorial Foundation, $5,000. 14111, 14,130, contribution from Wilson Bacon Trust for scoreboards in the Travis County High School gym. And 14112I, insurance recovery, $18,700 for damages to a bus. Any questions on any of the budget amendments from the committee? Okay, motion from Atwood. Is there a second? Okay, second by Gully. Any discussion on the budget amendments? All in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, that gets us through budget amendments. Only other discussion items. I have A and B. I'm going to, with y'all's indulgence, I'm going to do B first, just as other. Everyone should have received this sheet. This is a copy of something that was presented to Parks and Rec Thursday evening. Parks and Rec had previously approved or had previously authorized Ms. Amy to look in the county to look into applying for a local parks recreation fund grant with an eye toward replacing the swimming pool. We received a very rough estimate, and what I believe they told us was a bit of an overestimate as well from Kimberly Horn at the Parks meeting last Thursday night. And their estimate on the cost of that was, as you'll see on that sheet, was about 2.3 million. Now, that LPRF grant would be a 50% county match. So if we opted to pursue that grant and it wound up being this, our portion of that would be roughly roughly 1.15 million. Of course, there's contingency and administrative on that too. We don't need to make a decision on this tonight. Obviously, the application to have the grant, the deadline to have the grant application in, excuse me, is April the 1st. So don't know whether Parks will want to pursue that grant or whether the commission will want to pursue that grant. If the commission does choose to pursue that grant, we'll have to have that our portion of that grant funding in place when the application was sent in. Am I recalling that correctly, Miss Amy? So, like I said, just wanted to get that on everyone's radar, just to be thinking about whether we want to go down that path with that grant or not. Only other discussion item was the wheel tax. Of course, in November, we had the presentation from Mr. Beller on that draft resolution, which I think we will discuss more tonight at work session, but also kind of wanted to get thoughts of the committee on how they felt about it. The original proposal was at $80 and had 40% of that going toward capital project jail, 40% capital project school, and 20% just capital project county in general. Am I remembering that correctly, Mr. Ford? Okay. Just kind of want to get everyone's thoughts on the committee on that proposal. Know what, if anything, do we want to change? What do we, how do we feel about it? And I will say, and speaking as commissioner, not as chair, I will just say, me personally, I would have a time justifying putting anything toward school capital project. We have no proposal or anything from them at this point. It's been said, well, we might need a school down the road, but no one has said anything in that regard. So that's just my thought as commissioner, not as the chair. Mr. Gully.
I'll speak as a commissioner as well. I can clearly tell you that you are dealing with a 1952 model building with a 1980 addition that was put on it, that I can promise you is well used. We've extended its life as a commission by adding a roof to it some years ago. But I can assure you that you are going to be seeing that come your way as a need before you think it's not. So I would make sure that you plan ahead and not react. Unfortunately, this commission for years back was reactionary and tried to find it now. So plan ahead and go on and let that piece be a start going forward instead of, we know it's on the horizon. There's not a county around us that's not having to build a school. I think Macon County is currently putting up a $70 million facility right now. I don't think we're looking at that size facility, but I think you will be seeing a facility come your way. And that's only housing a portion of their elementary, not all of their elementaries that they're putting together. And they already had the property purchased or had an agreement to purchase a nice piece of property there. I think your school board in the past, and I don't know where they'll go, has purchased and cleaned up some property pieces where they might have an option. I don't know where they'll go, but I will tell you that you have a 1952 building, which means 1952 plumbing, a 1952 electrical. It's got some age on it, and that's straight up as clear as I'm going to be on that. I would say plan accordingly that there will be a need. There's nowhere around that's not having to build schools. We're growing, and it's going to happen.
Thank you, sir. Any thoughts from anyone else on the committee? Mr. Ford.
I've had several people talk to me about this. Down at our high school, on both ends of the school, it could be several classrooms put, not one or two, many of them. And be far cheaper on Trousdale County to put our seventh, eighth grade or whatever down there and build it down there than it would be to go over here and build a new school where the one is now. It'll cost you 3 times as much, if not more, to do that. And you could do it right down there without even probably a third of what it's gonna cost. All you gotta do is dig your footers, build your rooms, you'll be in them in no time. The conversion could be easily made, even if it were 2 entities.
Mr. Ford, I agree with you that it was built well and planned well, that wings could be added to add, I believe at that time, 4 classrooms on each end. 4 classrooms won't get close. Yes, sir, that's, Mr. Ford, we're not here to argue. But I believe it was set up originally to add the length of 4 classrooms on that piece. I will also say that A, that's up to the school board on the routes they go on those pieces. And B, I don't think it's the smartest thing to put 7th and 8th grade kids in the same age with a senior in a building, same building myself. I don't think you'll find that as a smart move. However, I believe you will also see that most likely the best bets are you have a very decent elementary that can house where it's at right now. You have a decent high school that can house where it's at right now, and you could expand a little bit. I think if we're smart going forward, you build one building that could take some of the load off the elementary and give some space for it and do kind of what you're saying where you're not costing down the road. The truth is, you're talking our middle school today is close to the same size of kids as the high school is in 3 right now. We're growing. They're going to see the same problem in the future is all I'm saying. You're not way down the road before you might even be asking to build classrooms onto that building. So I'm just giving you the straightforward. All I'm saying is this conversation came up because Chairman, you mentioned that you weren't sure about putting 40% towards a school that hadn't been asked for. I think it's very important to put our money up going forward because we know it's on the horizon. No matter how soon it's on the horizon, it's always important to start a plan rather than react to a need. I hope y'all, that's how I do accounting in my home. I hope y'all do the same, hopefully.
Anything else from the committee? All right, seeing nothing, seeing none, move to public comments. Any comment from members of the public here? Seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn. Bubba, is there a second? Ford? All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.